Hey, what's up? My name is Paul Russell Parker III. You might also know me as PRP3 the author. I'm an author of 9 published books, and one of them is called The Sambac Crystal and the Stolen Kingdom. It's part of my Crystals of the Enchantment Tree series. This is book 1, and I'm working on book 2 now, and I plan on having at least a trilogy. I might have more books and whatnot. So the reason why I'm making this video is I want to talk about it a little bit and talk about how I came up with the idea for it. Now, a lot of that credit goes to my eldest daughter, and she is also the main character in the story, Princess Dre, Princess Alessandra Bayani. And if you read the book, she has more part to that name, but I won't spoil that. Now, we were sitting around a campfire roasting s'mores, and she wanted to tell a story. She was saying, "Hey, let's tell ghost stories, or let's tell any kind of stories." So she started telling a story about kind of like what the book is about. Two young brothers were in a kingdom. Their parents were kidnapped, and there was an evil sorcerer who was ruling over the kingdom, took it over, was poisoning people, and they had to go through different um, obstacles to try to free their parents and free the kingdom. It was a real short story. It probably took her 5 minutes to tell it the most. But I started writing it down as she was telling it in my phone, making notes, because I thought it was an interesting premise. So I asked her after she told it. It was me, my wife, her siblings, some aunts and uncles, and her aunts and uncles, and some of her cousins. So I talked to her and I said, "So what gave you the idea?" And she said, "It sounds fun. I wanted to tell a hero story." And I said, "Yeah, that makes sense, but you know, at the time, this was before both her brothers were born. I was like, well, why didn't you say sisters? It was you and your little sister in our family. Of course, we didn't mention brothers, but I was like, you have a little sister. Why'd you say brothers?" And she's like, "Well, no, because boys are heroes. Girls really don't do that." I'm like, "What?" And she was young, maybe 6, 7 at the time. And I said, "Girls can be heroes." And she said, "Well, can they?" And I was like, "Yes, they can be heroes." I was like, "An older sister can rescue a little brother, or can rescue a sister, or can be the hero, can and free a kingdom." And she's like, "I don't know." So I was like, "You know what? I'll show you." So I decided to go out and write her story down. And I said, "You know what? I'm going to show you that girls can be heroes." And I said, "You can be a hero." So I went and wrote the book as her as the main character, added her sister into it. By the time that time, a brother had been born, a brother into it, friends, family, and whatnot. And I showed her, and I read a lot of it to her because it's kind of a thick book, a lot for someone her age at that time to read. But I wanted to let her know that girls can do it too. I wanted her to have that confidence and that belief that she can accomplish things in life, and that she can, you know, she don't have to rely on other people. She can do it herself. So that was the main reason and backing and why I wrote the book, because it's not a genre of my other books. Before I published this one, I published a military themed series, because I'm a military veteran. I served in the Marine Corps, fought in Iraq, and I branched off into fantasy, high fantasy, Arthurian legend type, rag to riches type, uh, sword and sorcery type book. I like those kind of books, so it wasn't too hard for me to write, but wasn't something that I originally had been publishing in. So I enjoyed writing it. It was fun. It was fun seeing her reaction and my other children's reactions, hearing their names mentioned in the story and seeing their characters, and and I also put a little bit of myself into the story. Now I'm not in it as a character at all, but um, I'm half Filipino. My mother's from the Philippines. She's from Manila. My father is from America. He's European. His background is European American background. So I wanted to, you know, be able to include both of those sides into my story. Obviously, it's a knight, sorcerer, kingdoms, castles. That's the European side of me. Now the Filipino side of me that's into it, starting off with the name, the Sambac crystal. Sambac um, is a flower, the Arabian jasmine sambac. the name right now. I got to go look it up later, but it's the name of a flower, the Latin name of a flower that exists in the Philippines. The flower in the Philippines I'm thinking of is called the Sambagita. The Sambagita is an Arabic jasmine, some Sambac, some type of name. So a Sambagita flower is white, and I wanted to make a white stone. It was like a clear white stone, like snowy type stone, and I wanted to symbolize something of the Philippines. So Sambagita is like the flower of the Philippines, so that's where that came from. And a lot of the place names in the story comes from the Philippines. Like the main capital is called the Ever Loyal City. Well, Manila was called the Ever Loyal City by the Spanish, as they colonized it. Some of the towns come from the Philippines, like Nilad, Maynilad, Lungsod sa Maynilad, Nilad is a town name. It comes from the Philippines. Sampa is a town. Sampaguita. Um, some other names come from where we lived at the time in North Carolina, like Elms, Bears Lair. I live in a place near called Bears Creek. Um, yeah, so I was able to put a lot of that into the story. The names of the characters, all their first names you know, are my real kids and nephews' real names, and their Western names. Their last names are all Filipino names, Filipino words. Bayani, Dalasai, you know, Maharlika, you know, um, yeah, let's see, there were other names, Bukid. A lot of the different names in there, they're all Filipino words or real names or Filipino items, So I just wanted to, they sounded kind of exotic to a Western reader, so I thought it would fit into a story that was fantasy based. So I was able to touch on a lot of my heritage in the story because I wanted, kids like me, I'm a writer, I write to an audience. I wanted my audience to be everybody, but I also wanted, like, little Filipino kids who don't usually get to see stories like this can kind of feel some kind of, you know, bond with the story. They can kind of feel like it's part of their story too, because they may read things, and the character one time, Princess Dre, says something like, you are you gonna tell me that tick ticks are real too? Well, tick tick is a creature in the Philippines that preys on pregnant women, and husbands will sleep with machetes to protect their wives in the Philippines. I know when I was in the Philippines and my wife was pregnant there, they told me to have a machete on hand as well for the tick ticks, and an American won't really understand that reference, unless they know Filipino mythology. But Filipinos will read it and be like, "Oh wow, tick tick! I know what a tick tick is." But I didn't want to make it too out of reach for American readers and Western readers. That's why it is written in the style it is. It's Western style. But like I said, I enjoyed adding that touch, that personal touch for my heritage into the story. And a lot of the character names, like I said, they're my children's names. And I just had another son born, so he's gonna be added into the story in book 2. And a lot of the other characters are nephews of mine, or my cousin's kids, or my cousin's grandkid. I have older cousins, so I wanted to write a story and have a bond with a lot of my family, and a lot of the names people have as well in the world, but I thought it was cool, and they love it. They love being a character. They tell their friends, "Oh, I'm in a story," or "I'm in a book," So that was a nice touch too. So that was the main reasons why I wrote it, and I wrote it, and why I added. If you were wondering, like, why are there some Filipino type themes in there? Well, it's because I'm half Filipino, and I wanted to include my heritage in there in a little bit, not overwhelmingly so. And it was a fun book to write, and I'm enjoying writing book 2 now. I have a lot of people. I'm sorry it's been a while since I published book 1, and they're still waiting for book 2 to come. It is a process to write. It's not a quick process. and I am working on book two. Now that I have my studio set up, book two is on the way. Trust me, sooner than you think. And like I said, here's the front, here's the back. You can find it on Amazon, paperback and ebook. It's exclusive to Amazon, but you can get like you can buy the book and download an Amazon e-reader on your phone for free. So you get the e-reader and you open up the book that way. So you can get the book. It's reasonably priced, the paperback and the ebook copy prices. And I think you'll enjoy it. It's a very fun story. Like I said, it's a rags to riches type story. I read the back to kind of give you more of an idea if you're not familiar with the book. But if you read it, you're pretty familiar with it and you're excited for book two. Now, the book is, the back cover says, Calavalin is in turmoil. Subjects are disappearing and whispers of strange new monsters are spreading throughout the kingdom. Even worse, the king and queen seem to be oblivious to the new danger at hand. Not Dre, though. Dre and her brother Sully. I know in the story you're thinking Sully, but in this, his name is Suleiman, and so his nickname is Sully. So Dre and her brother Sully are quietly training to defend themselves in the forest near their family's cottage. Even with years of training, nothing will prepare them for the looming war after dark forces are seemingly given free rein in the kingdom. Dark forces led by the king's closest advisor, Jake. Jake, the feared sorcerer in the shadows who holds the Sambac crystal. So yeah, there are probably a couple pronunciations that you weren't clear on. You probably made your own. But yeah, this is called the Sambac crystal. Suleiman is Sully. Dre is, you might not know how to pronounce it, but it's Dre. Alessandra, Dre, Athena, Nina. And yeah, so like I said, it's a fun story. There's a kingdom taken over, and the people are tired of being under the sway of this sorcerer, and there's monsters lurking around, and they decide that it's time to fight. It's time to oust this sorcerer, but not the king and queen themselves, because they're still loyal. The people are still loyal to the leadership, the the rulers, the crown, the throne, but they're not loyal to who they perceive as being unjust, and that's Jake Dahas. So look it up. You can Google it. You can search it on Amazon. You can Google my name, Paul Russell Parker III, or PRP3 the author. You'll find it. If you find my social media pages, in my Instagram, my Twitter, my Facebook, my Amazon, my WordPress, you'll find it. So yeah, I'll make more videos and talk more probably about each character, and talk about some of the scenes. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover in the book. A lot of Easter eggs I wrote, a lot of inspirations. Another inspiration before I sign off, I want to talk about an inspiration for a battle. Now, in one of the battles that you see in here is the battle where the princess's forces are battling Jake's forces outside of one of the outposts near the capital city, and they're in square formations and they're faced off, and also they're rushed from the sides, and the cavalry comes and cuts through the enemy and whatnot. Well, the inspiration for that battle scene came from La Noche Triste. That's the sad night, the night of sorrows, during Cortez's attack on Montezuma, in the Aztec city of Tenochtitlan. After they took the gold and whatnot, they tried to escape the city after Montezuma was killed, and they were attacked on all sides by the native forces, and they basically had to maintain a square, and they had cavalry, and that's how they were able to escape. The scene is very similar to what happened in real life, and I just thought that was one of the most powerful scenes I've read about, and I wanted to give homage to that. I wanted to include the inspiration for that scene. So like I said, that came from a book written by Bernal Diaz del Castillo, called The True History of the Conquest of New Spain. And so that's where that inspiration come. And there's other inspirations for other parts of the books, other battles, other scenes. I just thought that I wanted to talk about some of the Easter eggs I put in there. I put Easter eggs in all of my books and all of my fictions that I want to discuss at a future time, and I think that's cool. So if you're familiar with that battle scene with when the Spanish forces and their native auxiliary were retreating, you will be familiar. You'll recognize that scene in the book, and you'll say, "Hey, I read about that battle, and I know what happened and how they retreated and how they were able to fend off the native attackers while not being decimated themselves." And that's a nice touch. It's very similar. So yeah, that's it. That's one video. I'll make more, talk more about the book, and leave some comments. Tell me about the book if you liked it or not. Let me know. Hit me up, and I will love to have a conversation with anybody about any of my readers about any of it. So that's it. So thank you. Have a good day.